My name is Mariella, and I'm super excited to dive into this next hour with you. I know that I say that often, but really, it comes from the questions that you all submit offline. Like, they're really fantastic. We pair them up with these awesome guest speakers who have all of this expertise and passion about, a certain topic. And so I spoke with our guest speaker offline just a few minutes now. She's calling from Ohio, and I'm really excited to learn with you all today based on what she has to share. So I want to dive right into this hour. It's going to go by really quickly. You'll see. So I really, can't stress enough that we want to hear from you. I've muted everyone upon entrance. That's just to avoid background noise, but feel free to come off of mute whenever you want. Turn your cameras on. We want to hear from you. We want to really make this engaging. So with that said, if you have any sensitive information and you want to be kept anonymous, you can find me in the chat box under Mariella. You can write to me anonymously and I'll flag that to our guest speaker. But otherwise, come off mute, turn your cameras on. I'll sound like a broken record by the end of this chat. If you do come off mute and turn your cameras on, you will be recorded as we are recording live now. So you will also receive this in a rewatch email. So I invite everyone to be present and then rewatch this video a little later and you can take notes there. The last thing I'll say is follow us on socials and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can stay in tune with all the great chats we've got coming up. Without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic to Julie. Julie, I was really happy to chat with you a little bit offline, and I'm excited to hear what you have to say. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you came to know about Power to Fly, and what you're excited to share with us today?
Hi, everyone. I'm Julie Tepe, and as Mariella said, I'm calling in from Ohio. And a little bit about me and my professional background is that I have about 8 years of agency and corporate marketing experience. So that's my background. I am specifically in the realm of copywriting and content development. And in my relatively short career, I've worked across 8 different industries. I've worked with teammates and clients all over the world. And I'm currently supporting brands in the industries, in the financial industries, consumer packaging goods, and the restaurant space. So in my free time, I have a proofreading and editing business because if I don't get enough of the marketing and writing during my day job, I like to do it in my free time also. And I also am a team member of a startup called jobpairing.com. And job pairing is how I got acquainted with Power to Fly, because one of our target audiences are women in technology and working moms and empowering women in this space. So that's a little bit about me. A little bit personal. I live in this rural town called Delaware, Ohio with my husband and my cat.
Beautiful. What's your cat's name?
Her name is Elsa. And after Princess Elsa from Frozen.
Just to be clear. Awesome. Okay, great. So thank you, Julie, for that great introduction. And so we've got folks joining from all over. So if you're just joining us, go ahead and write in the chat box and let us know where you're calling from. And I say that to say we've got some great questions here that you all have submitted offline. So we're calling from, let's see, I'm in Argentina, Julie's in Ohio. We've got Olga in Russia. We've got Buenos Aires. We've got North Carolina, Chicago, Dallas, Texas, Ohio, Boston. Oh, okay, great. So you all have submitted some great questions offline. We will take these questions one by one. I'm just going to present them on the screen as they are. For example, we'll start with this one. And if you see your question come on the screen, feel free to come off mute and share your voice. If you had a dream last night and something rings a bell and you want to share some information, feel free to do that. We don't want to hold you back. So let's start with this first question, Julie. What is the best or most unexpected benefit of job pairing for the employees?
Okay, so this question I kind of take 2 different ways. So the first way I interpret it is, what's the most unexpected benefit of job sharing as a work model? And then what's the best or most unexpected benefit of job pairing the platform? And just to level set the conversation of job sharing and that as a work model, I think the main benefit is that it provides an opportunity for you to have more time for things that you love or things that you need to do, while also allowing you to continue your career. And, often people have a fear that if they reduce their working hours, they'll have to either switch fields entirely, or they will have to take on less responsibility. Whereas this way, through job sharing model, you can continue the career that you have and that you most likely love, hopefully. And then the benefit for the platform of job pairing would be that it's one place where we can really streamline that process and bring all the people together who are looking for that type of employment and that type of working model into one site where they can connect with each other. So kind of, weeding out all the other details from, other platforms that might not specify job sharing as a work model. Kind of like the way I explain it to maybe like my family members who aren't as techie is like, you have dating sites like farmersonly.com. If you are a farmer and you would like to begin a romantic relationship with another farmer, that's a good place to go. And so if you are someone seeking a job mate for a job sharing opportunity, job pairing is a good place to go.
I really think it's great to think, the partnership aspect of it, I like. We often get folks who blow my mind on some of these chats. And I remember the first time I heard just to look at like your relationship with your employer as a partnership. Like, I am not just the employee and you are not my boss. Like, we are doing this together for, a certain reason. And so to think of like someone being able to help you work in that way as well, whether it be, to, plant sustainable foods together as farmers, because whatever, you're looking for that specific match, essentially, that will support your same ambitions. I like the idea.
Yes. And, each person brings a unique skill set. You might have similar competencies, but you might be a strong presenter, whereas someone else is really strong with the strategy or what have you. It's about complementing each other.
I like that. All right, so let's move on to this next question here. Is there any way for job seekers to search specifically for shared positions?
Yeah, so this is definitely a gap we've identified in the job seeking space. And so with job pairing specifically, we want to streamline that whole process for everybody and allow employees who are looking to share their job to be able to say that, like in a profile, say like, hey, I have a job to share. Does this match your skill set, your professional requirements? And it also is a platform where employers, can come and post jobs that are open to job sharing opportunities. So that's a big goal for us at Job Pairing, is to make sure that we provide an easy way for job seekers to search specifically.
So how's it been so far? Are people receptive to that? It seems like a new concept, but not so new. I feel like it makes sense. It's probably been done before. Maybe people have called it different things, but definitely not for like the modern way of working.
Yeah, so what we found is that, especially in the United States, job sharing isn't as common. And so, we look to some players in the space in Europe and Australia who have been successfully providing this type of service. And we hope that some progressive companies in the US will start adopting that. With that said, job pairing is for anyone in any place of the world. So it's not just limited to the United States, but that's definitely our, initial target market, is trying to connect people. And I think that starting out, we're working on, getting that word out that the service is available, and not only is the service available, but the work model is available. And just getting that momentum of people chiming in and and starting that search, and even, you know, soul searching within themselves, whether this is something that would benefit them.
Mhm. So when you say like ideally, you know, a progressive company would say like, yeah, let's try it out. What does a progressive company look like to you? So maybe like some of them are listening now.
Sure. I think companies that are in tune with how we live right now. You know, there are certainly some companies that might not be receptive to this type of model, but a company that really wants to retain their talent and get the best talent, they need to start offering these types of working arrangements for their employees. So for me, when I have job searched in the past, I've really looked at, you know, what are maternity leave policies like? Are they generous? Benefits like vacations and things like that, where companies really seem to care about the well-being, both on like a physical health, a mental health, emotional and spiritual health. That's kind of what I would describe as a progressive company.
I love that. And how sad, honestly, to say that that is progressive, that you care about someone's wellness. So we've got a lot of work to do. And if you say that, you know, this is an opportunity to work on some of those, you know, awful ways of just, you know, work-life balance throughout generations. I mean, watching our parents work a certain way, or our neighbors, or, you know, the different, just the different taboos, even in different industries, you know, I mean, I come from Los Angeles. I'm not there for a lot of different reasons, but it's just like, you know, there are so many restrictions, for example, that's like, this makes no sense. This is
Well,
clearly something that someone made up so long ago in a different time. Why is it this way?
exactly. And I think one of the things that I think about is how accessible we are as employees nowadays. You know, we have our email on our phones, and we have different chat apps on our phones, where it seems like our employers can get a hold of us any given time. And often there's an expectation to be available at any given time. And so with that in mind, if employers have that, you know, much access into our life, there should be an understanding that we as women, as people, some of us are moms, you know, we wear many hats. We're not just employees.
Absolutely. Great. Okay, great. So let's move on to this next question here. Can job pairing be done remotely and or while living abroad?
I like this one. The answer is a resounding yes. Um, and the idea is that any job that can be performed remotely, theoretically, would be a good candidate for job sharing. Of course, you might have industries like healthcare or education where you need to report to a specific hospital location, or you might need to report to a classroom physically. And so there are certainly industries where it might not lend itself to be remote, but absolutely, I would say if you're already doing your job remotely, you should be able to job share remotely.
So this seems like the perfect time to be experimenting with that, right? I mean, my one of my big theories of like how we can just like try to carve out a new way of living and being and connecting with each other that isn't so fatal, essentially on a global level, is to experiment with these, you know, different ways of doing things while staying true to the core of like wellness and empathy and emotional intelligence, you know, and not straying away from that just for, you know, I don't know, greed or power in an unbalanced way. So why would you argue? I'm assuming you're arguing right now is a great time to experiment with something like this. Why do you say that? I mean, everything is going, well, not everything, a lot of things are going remote right now. So it seems like a great opportunity to experiment.
Yeah, so I think it's a great opportunity because many companies who were not previously open to the conversation of remote work in general are now, fortunately or unfortunately, being forced to consider it. And I think some of the eyes are being opened that, wow, our employees can do their jobs remotely, and they don't slack off. And in fact, their productivity has increased. And there are those cases. So I think this would be a good time. And the other thing, I just thought of another thing, is that as an employee, many people are reconsidering their current situations. Whether that's families that are now seeing a lot more of each other than they used to, and just that dynamic of what's really important when we go through something traumatic as a world, as a pandemic. It's like you start to consider what's really important in life, and is this job the one that I want to be doing? Is there something else I want to be doing? Like, life is short.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great. So I'm curious to know if any of our live callers have ever done or worked in this way, or if they have any questions, please write in the chat box, or you can hop off mute. Until then, I'll move on to this next question here. So if you're already employed in a full-time position, is there any way to suggest or ask that the position be shared? Or are you stuck risking your professional standing by bringing it up?
Ooh, this is a good one. So I'll try to unpack it in pieces. If you're already employed in a full-time position, is there a way to suggest or ask that the position be shared? Yes. And we go into a lot of very specific detail on the job pairing site as to, advice on how to attack this. And there's a section called templates and tools. And if you check that out, it walks through very specific steps. What I can say in a brief amount of time is that the best approach is to have as much of your plan mapped out as possible before you engage your employer. Because what that'll do is, if you can identify what would work for you in this job sharing arrangement, as far as, how you would like to split your time. Would it be a 50-50? Would you prefer a 30-70? They're all different ways that you can set up a job sharing arrangement. Perhaps it's a work in the mornings only and your job mate works in the evenings only. Again, there's lots of different ways that you can set it up, but basically walking into that conversation with the plan already set out, so that you can have that dialogue of, if there is any objection, you can handle that with, well, this is what I think would work. This is what I think would work. If you could go into the conversation with someone in mind already, whether that be someone in your company that is in a similar situation that would also be open to that, or it could be someone outside of your organization that you know of, or it could be someone that you connect with on jobpairing.com. But having, their resume available, or even better, your joint resume, like what can you both bring to the table to help with any of this objection handling that might come up. And then, are you stuck or risking your professional standing by bringing it up? So this one I can definitely empathize with, because I feel like many of us can relate that anytime you have to go into a conversation, whether you're negotiating a salary or asking for a promotion or whatever, asking to be, I'm going to label it as fearful when I walked in and asked to be taken off a client. Anytime you walk into your manager's office and you feel like you might rock the boat a little bit or put something on their plate that you don't think they're going to like it can be scary. And so I don't want to disregard the emotional aspect of the fear of risking something. But what I do think is important to think about is, if you are considering job sharing, there's probably a really, really good reason. We've got working moms who are finding that they actually really would like to dedicate more time to their children. or you have, like, I think of my mom in this case. My mom's parents, my grandparents, are in their mid-80s, and my grandma's suffering from Alzheimer's. And so not only does my mother work a full-time job, but she also cares for them almost full-time, and it's a lot. And she's a grandma herself, so there's so many pressures. And so, whether it's your children or aging loved ones or a loved one with special needs, or maybe you want to grow a photography business, or you want to foster all the kittens in the world, or volunteer for your local organization or your church, or whatever it is. There's a good reason why you want to do that. And so my philosophy is that if it's important to you, it's just important, period. And so there's no reason why you should fear sharing your needs with your employer. And the other part of that is, quite frankly, if you are afraid of retaliation or a negative response, it might be time to ask yourself, is this an employer that I want to work for? So.
Yes. Oh, you're dropping some gems. I love this. This is great. I love how, you're touching on so many topics. I remember listening to a podcast, I think it was on NPR, but I can't remember at this moment, but they were specifically talking about, well, specifically in the States, the care culture and the care industry and the people that care for, our grandparents or the elders in our community, or, people who are having challenges or who are recovering, and how oftentimes it's put on the weight of the person that, like your mom in this case. And so she's having essentially to do, 4 full-time jobs, be a grandmother, be a mother, be a, caretaker, be a full-time worker. And it's like, we're running our people into the ground. And no wonder we don't have emotional intelligence. This is actually just like an aha moment. Like, I know I can give a lot of reasons. I love to talk about emotional intelligence, and especially in the workplace, but you can't really expect people to have emotional intelligence in the workplace if their life doesn't have space for that. And so it seems like, I need to obviously, I'm super interested in what you all are doing. I'm definitely going to be researching more, because I think that this kind of experimentation and honestly a provocative way of thinking of how, at least in the Western world, in the States, like how to do things differently so that you can carve out more wellness time for yourself. Someone here has written me in the chat, because when I asked everyone if they had heard of this or if they're part, so never heard it before, but super interested. It really allows you to be able to focus on other things and grow your career. It sounds like that's interesting to think of, like you can do 2 things at once without having to choose one or the other. I would love for you to hear more about you. I know I'm just kind of like soaking it all in, but what do you have to say?
No, so one of the things that I think about is how, like we were talking about the multiple different hats for my mom example. She's a full-time employee. She cares for my grandparents. She makes sure that they have a casserole like every night, and then she's a grandma, and she's my mom, and she just wears so many hats, and she's tired. I need to get her a massage or something. I need to call my mom and remind her how much she's appreciated. But essentially, there's like you said, there's not even enough time in the day for emotional intelligence, right? Like, you are so pulled in all these different directions. And I know everybody can relate on some level, because whether you're a mom or, you are a partner or, whatever, we all have relationships that have, that we want to tend to, that we want to nurture and grow. And it could be a project, or anything like that. And so we only have so many hours in a day, and our time is so precious. Like, it is something that should be fiercely guarded and accounted for and budgeted for, just like we would our finances, because we only have so much of it. And if we are cramming so many responsibilities into a 40-hour work week, how can you, I don't want to say it, but you're kind of half-assing everything. Excuse my language, but you know, like you're
Yeah.
not giving the full attention to everything because you're constantly, or at least I am, like bling, like everything's going everywhere.
Absolutely. And you know what? It's hard for, and we have people writing in the chat box, so true. Yes, please do say that you love your mother. I think that's what Nicole is writing. Um, and I love that thank you first for being real and saying that, because I think that, I don't know. I feel like it's more responsible to look at your time that way, instead of selling your soul to the time timestamp the work's timestamp. Let's all rebel. No, I'm just joking. But it doesn't allow for the friend or the partner or the mother or the neighbor to fully be present, and more often than not. And I would even argue that that's probably a cause that we draw so many lines, put up so many walls, because we don't I don't know. That's a really deep one to go into, but just like being more responsible with your time, and that means giving yourself time to like get to know yourself. We like thinking of age, even in this time of growing in different ages. You don't become 44 like in one day. It's a process. It's a continual process, and eventually you are turning into 44. You're not
Right.
moving from one time to the next, and then all of a sudden it's gone, or so much time has passed. And I love that you're saying account for your time as you would with your finances. Great.
Mhm. And that's hard to do as a creative. Like I'm all over the place. So
Yeah.
I'm a work in progress on that piece of advice myself. So
Well, I lost my thought, but yes, this is exactly what I was going to say. I'm glad that you helped me remind myself. Living in a world as a creative, I mean, uber creative, like let's say everyone thinks on the left side of their brain and I think on the right side of my brain. Growing up, it was, 10 times as strong. And it's like, how do you fit inside of a majority population that is like so logical, linear, you do one thing forever and ever, amen. It's like, no, that's another time. I think we have so many gifts that we aren't really even aware of, actually. And if we could, maybe, I don't know, job share, for example.
right.
And I know that you're actually job sharing with yourself by writing more outside of your job, but you're turning it into, your project. Anyway, I'm rambling, but I love this concept. So let's move on to this next question here. What are the benefits of job sharing for the employer?
Okay, so I love this question because there are so many more benefits that I have thought before I came to understand the concept of job sharing. Because we focus on benefits for us, but what are the benefits? Why would an employer ever agree to do this? And the main one, or the biggest one for me, is the retention of this talent that's already in their companies or their organizations. And I keep using the example of working mom. So hopefully that's something that resonates with a lot of people. But you have an employee who is about to go on maternity leave, and sometimes there's this stigma of like, oh, are they going to come back? Are they going to want to continue working or not? And I guess that might be natural. Like I don't know if that's natural, but I don't really like it. But with with job sharing, you can offer that, like, hey, if let's say mom comes back and says, oh, like I think I'm gonna, step back, give you my 2 weeks, whatever it is, because I want more time with my kids. What if the employer said, hey, we really value like your role as a mother and we respect that, but what would you say about job sharing with another mother in the company? Like what would that look like? That would make me feel good. Instead of trying to convince someone to shirk responsibilities as a mother in their mind, it's, offering an alternative that would be a win-win. But this retention of talent also goes into the financials because it's steep the cost of rehiring is pretty steep for many many positions in businesses. And so companies can actually save money by not losing this talent and having to replace it. Another benefit is the attraction of a different market of talent. So individuals who may not think that they can take on a full-time job, and so they limit themselves to maybe roles that are more suited for a part-time job. So it can increase diversity in your company by tapping into different markets. And then another one is the continuity of the business. So if you bring in, your pair, you've got job mate A and job mate B. If job mate B needs to take a vacation, job mate A can cover. Or, job mate A could step up and take a couple extra hours for that week or that 2 weeks. Or there still would be someone completing work just half the time. Another thing would be with the continuity of business, sick leave or emergencies. There's this really great example out of Columbus, Ohio, with Chase Bank. There's Chase Bank headquarters here. And there are these two ladies who job shared for years. And there's an example they gave in an article about one of them had a really big report due, and everybody knows how that feels to like have something big looming over their head. And then whatever day it was one of their days off, and the woman who was on had an emergency with her child. And the other one was able to step in and cover seamlessly. And the report was turned in and everything was fine. And no one was the wiser that there was any blip on the radar. So there is this element of having each other's back. And I think that was like 3 benefits. I think I could come up with more, but I don't know if there are any reactions to those.
Yeah. No, I mean, great. I love that. I love that there is already a case study, or are case studies that, show why it's interesting to advocate for something like this. And I love that you mentioned the continuity. I think that we have, I think that we can never go back to like, just like a slow mind, slow way of thinking, a slow way of, we can slow our pace down in life, but I think that we want to come up, at least, we can speak on if we're creative people and it just kind of bursts out of our ears all the time. It's like, I want to do so many things. And I see that something like this would actually allow you to like really like not just like do them and then bounce, like water them, nurture them, and like see it through, help it grow from that shared support. I love that.
I don't know about you, but I don't take very many vacations, but when I do take vacations, I get antsy and end up writing down a bunch of ideas of things that I want to do. And then I catch myself like, this is not a vacation. Like, shut off your brain for a second. But anyway.
Got the plan, the vacation planned out. It's like, we are going step by step. This is the vacation.
Exactly.
All right, so let's move on to this next question here. I worry that if I were able to convince my boss to shift my role to shared, I'd be regulated to less challenging or impactful tasks. Is this a valid concern? If so, are there any ways I can prevent or push back against this?
This is another good one. I would argue that this question frames exactly how job sharing is a different model than a part-time position. So with job sharing, you are bringing, let's just say, we'll call them top talent, right? You're bringing yourself because you're amazing and you're wonderful at your job and you exceed expectations all the time. You're taking yourself and you're complementing yourself with a job mate, and through a vetting process that we can talk about, like you pick someone who's going to complement you in only the best ways. And so you're kind of this dream team that theoretically you shouldn't be given less challenging or less impactful tasks. You should be given more challenging and more impactful assignments because you're, 2 heads are better than one. You've kind of doubled up your power, if your brain power, to help achieve these great results. So I guess the pushback would be selling the pair and selling the value of like your amazing talent plus someone else who is as amazing and as talented tackling the same tasks.
So I have a question. I know you mentioned briefly that you can decide what the sharing is like. For example, maybe it's, you said the example of maybe one person works in the day, one person works at night, if that's the arrangement. What other kinds of possibilities are there? So, and then the follow-up question is, how do you make sure that, for example, one person has one role, that they do and they don't share the role, but they often find themselves overworking, and then their 40-hour week becomes, 50, 60 and more. How do you avoid that while sharing, like not get in the same way of working where you're overworking essentially and burning out, so you don't kind of do the same thing you were doing when you weren't sharing the role?
Yeah, definitely. So I think the answer to almost any problem in the workplace is communication, communication, communication. And so I would say, well, to talk about your point about like what are the different types of job sharing arrangements, there's one that's called a hybrid arrangement, and that's where you have two individuals that share a job, but one individual might have a subset of tasks that they're responsible for, and the other might have their own set of subtasks. So it's like you share a main role, but you also provide different value in different ways. And then there's, the pure job share, where you are very much two people sharing one job, where let's pretend I've got Monday morning through Wednesday at noon, and then you pick up Wednesday at noon through Friday at 5. And in a perfect world, it would only be a 40-hour work week. But in that case, the organization should view you as one, like we like to call it, one pair. Like you're not two different people, you're a pair doing the same job. So whatever tasks I get done at the beginning of the week, whatever meetings I attend at the beginning of the week, whatever meetings I attend at the beginning of the week, I would then communicate to you so that you were prepped for whatever came your way at the end of the week. And then you would do the same thing for me so that I was prepped for the following week. And so it's all about finding this person who's, you meet their needs in the sense of their time preferences or their allocation preferences, and then and communicating and making sure that you really are like one person essentially to the organization.
I love it. I mean, I come from a theater and film background, so it's really easy for me to think in that way, thinking of it as a composition. It's not just, you cannot separate, and that makes you probably work differently as well. So of course, I love that you said that communication is key. And communication comes often because there is some sort of conflict. So I'd love for you to maybe share how someone might navigate. Let's say they are job sharing, and let's say that maybe after some time they don't they aren't able to resolve what they thought they would, as far as creating work consistently, all these things, and one or the other wants to separate. Or is that possible in this case? How do you do it? What's the right way to do it? Let me know what you think about that.
It's a breakup for sure. It's so funny how lots of these phrases kind of remind you of like a dating relationship or whatever. But so certainly there are all different kinds. I mean, I have a preferred method of communication, and it sounds weird, but I really love emails over chats in my day-to-day work, because in what I do, I need windows of concentration to get tasks done, and to get articles written or whatever needs to be done. And so when I'm being chatted constantly in a chat box, it's like, oh, my my attention is always, it's very difficult to concentrate, in my opinion. And so I prefer emails, because emails I can kind of like turn off notifications for a time and then get back to them. And then I've got a list of people I need to get back to, or what have you. So if I were in a job sharing arrangement, I would prefer an email method of communication. And so that point being that as a pair, you would need to decide how you prefer to communicate and what's best for you as a pair. And there, again, we have this really awesome section on our site called Templates and Tools, and it has all of these different downloadable resources of like a daily log file where you can jot down notes of things that happened that day and then email it or chat it to your job mate so that it keeps you both on the same page. But I would say in conflict resolution, like making sure that you are, in any great relationship, there's compromises. And so making sure that you're meeting each other in the middle. And let's say there is something that's, it's not good, it's not working out, and you're not as compatible as you thought you were, or something happened that you're not okay with and you want to break up. I mean, it's up to the discretion of the job mates, if it's not working out, or, perhaps your life circumstances change and you're ready to go back to full time. That's all something that I think the job pairing team and people who have job shared before would say, like, that's a conversation that you would have with your job mate to try to resolve that and see what is best for next steps. And if one job mate wants out of the pair and one job mate wants to stay, then it's time to start that search of, who can I replace my job mate with.
I love this.
That was a lot. Sorry.
No, this is great. This is great. I mean, I wish we had more time. We have about 15 minutes left. I just want to let everyone know. So if you have something to say, please write in the chat box or come off of mute. I have someone here who's written me in the privately who's asking, how do promotions tie into this? Do both people get promoted, or how do you envision it happening in the best, light?
So in a perfect job share relationship world, you would have the employer who views your job pair as a unit and not as individuals. And so ideally your key performance indicators would be the same for both of you. Any type of metric for success would be the same for both of you. And if you have, performance reviews or 360 reviews with peers or direct reports or anybody like that, you would be reviewed as a pair, but also individually. Like, you can't really ignore that you're not, like, it's not like you're not your own person anymore, but everything needs to be considered ultimately as how you work together as a pair and how that pair functions in the organization. And so in a perfect world, you would get promoted together as a pair. And, if that didn't happen, that's something that could break up a job sharing arrangement. And, that wouldn't be good. But it's a reality that it would essentially depend on how the employer is viewing you both as a pair.
Yeah, and maybe having that conversation ahead of time also, like since we're all figuring this out together,
Mm-hmm.
can I propose, can they propose, and we all figure it out, in a way that's going to be a win-win for everyone, no?
Most definitely. That's a super good point. There are recommendations that you create an agreement with your employer and your job mate that, how you create, you sign contracts with your employer when you start, like, have this agreement ahead of time of, this is how we would handle this situation, or this is how we would move forward in this situation. And knowing that, lots of people who are job sharing right now or want to job share are pioneers in this space, at least, in the US. And so it's like kind of like you're free to figure out what's going to work best for you and your employer.
I like that. I like that. It's treating also people as individuals, right? Even though you might be working as a team, you're now having to like form different guidelines on what is success in this situation and how can we work towards that together. Great. Let's move on to this next question here. So I work with coworkers scattered around the world from numerous cultures operating in sometimes radically different time zones. How can I protect my own personal peace and sanity and not become consumed by working 12 to 15-hour days? Even when I make an effort to keep regular hours and step away, I feel like I'm always waiting for the next ping.
Me too. Me too. I feel like that is, wow, like right in my heart, because I feel like, and I think I was this busy all the time, but being in this global pandemic world where, you know, it's almost as if like you're not allowed or you're not expected to have a life. Like, well, you're just at home anyway because there was a stay-at-home order, or, you know, what have you. And so it's kind of like you're expected to be available all the time. But I have a little note right here that says turn Outlook, Teams, and Skype notifications back on, because I've turned them off for this amount of time so that I don't get those pings. But I have to remind myself to turn them back on because that's not good if you forget that. But okay, so I have also worked with teams in Russia and Romania and India and in different time zones in the US. And so I definitely can empathize with this sentiment as far as like peace and sanity. And I don't think job sharing will solve this issue. Like, I think this is very prevalent in any type of work arrangement where it feels like you're being pulled in multiple directions and you're expected to be available at all times. But just from like a personal standpoint, I'm really not good at this, but I have been addressing this more recently because I'm like, I need to sleep and I need to decompress and all of these things. And so I have a older, wiser mentor that has shared with me that like no one cares more about your time than you do. And so you have to protect that fiercely. And so the advice given was create your non-negotiables, and like communicate that. And you can't even possibly over communicate what your non-negotiables are or what your boundaries are, whatever you would want to call it. But like for me, Sunday evenings are off limits because I have a church activity that I do on Sunday evenings. And so my coworkers know that there's about a 3 to 4 hour period that I might not respond, but that doesn't mean I won't respond before or after if there's a hot pitch or something coming through. Another one, basically I only have 2 non-negotiables, but another one is Tuesday nights, I have dinner with my grandparents. And that's super important time for me. And so my coworkers know I'm not available, you know, between 6 and 8 on Tuesday evenings. Otherwise, you know, I feel like we're in this time where everybody is kind of in survival mode and we're all trying to get by, and we're all, you know, at least it's like, hey, everybody's pitching in a little extra here and there, and some people are pitching in way extra. So again, I think communicating that and making sure that others are aware, because you know, companies are known for trying to get as much out of you as they can. And I don't think that's going to stop.
Absolutely. So just start protecting your time. I love that. And I love that you are seeking guidance from a older, wiser mentor, as you say, because we don't have the elders in our community, you know, that are progressive enough to say, maybe experiment with some other of these things. Either I mean, in my opinion, either they're really comfortable and it's like things are the way they are and this is the way that the world is and you might as well get over it, or you have non-existent elders that are in a part of the community for lots of different reasons that society puts on them, or you have elders that say, let me tell you, time is important. So like, how do you find these mentors that remind us of something that's so simple, but also so impactful in the way that we decide to share our time essentially in our space with others. It's interesting. I'm sure that most people thought, I mean, I've been working remotely for a very long time, and I'm sure most people thought, I don't know, maybe they could get away with certain things because they're not working in the office. But I find that there are a lot of people that are actually overworking because they're not unplugging from the computer, and like they don't have the little messages around saying like turn off notifications or turn them back on. Yes, I see you nodding your head. Did you want to comment on that, Julie?
Yeah, I mean, it's just really crazy how I've worked remotely previously in different positions, and then I worked in an office for several positions, and it is amazing working in the office and so many attitudes of how that's always how it has been, and I've always kind of been like flexible. Like I love working remotely because I don't know about everybody else, but I am distracted super easily. And so I'm that girl that when I'm in the office, I feel like everybody's coming over to like tell me something or talk to me about something, which I love, but I need concentration to do what I do. Like I need like noise canceling headphones and like blinders and like everything to get my job done well. And so working from home, my productivity has skyrocketed, but with that comes the expectation that needs to, it needs to be that way all the time. Like I always need to be on full blast, and that's not sustainable. And so on the note of finding a mentor, I recently found this mentor. I say recently, within the last few months, because I was just like, I don't know how to deal with this. I don't know how to get myself out of this kind of crazy hamster wheel of a cycle and figure out how to communicate those boundaries. So they do exist, but I think you got to go find them.
Absolutely. It's a message for everyone listening now. Go find your wisest elder and invite him for a tea and let's learn something all together.
And I would imagine, I'm sorry, I interrupted.
No, go.
There are some really amazing mentors in this community. So
totally.
Learn from, and they don't have to be older.
Absolutely. No. Because wise soul counts. Just be present and, and confident. Be like that. With that said, that's a good segue. If you are joining us live and you'd like to share your preferred way of connecting, maybe that's LinkedIn or something else. I love to use this time to practice what we preach. And so if you want to connect with folks who are joining us live, we can write that in the chat box. And maybe if Nicole is listening, she'll put the Google Doc in there so that you all can add it. If not, then we can just have them in the group chat box. Okay, perfect. She is. Thanks, Nicole. Great. So what else did I want to say about this? Yes. Also, I love that you are turning your notifications off. I just watched The Social Dilemma the other day, and I'm like, yes, everything. I'm so glad that they made this movie, this documentary about this. And one at the end of the film, they're like, what are some tips that you can give so people just aren't with their attention all the time, sucked into things? And I know that things are being built so that we have our attention sucked on, but like we can take a step as human beings and say, turn my notifications off. And this person recommended that. So I love that you're doing that.
That's awesome. That is on my list of things to watch. So I'll have to get on that one soon. But like, even this sounds so silly, but even like, I don't know if y'all get involved in group chats via text, but they're the bane of my existence. Like I love my friends, I love my family, but when I get in a group chat, it's like bing, 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 bing. And I'm like, guys, calm down. And so sometimes I even like mute the group chat if it's giving me like anxiety. So there are certain things you can do to help, ease that, I don't know, sense of urgency.
Yes, totally, totally. And we've got some folks writing in the chat box. Rosalind says mentors are everything. I recently had a conversation with someone that's implementing reversed mentorship. Can you talk a little bit about that, Rosalind? That sounds really cool. I sorry to put you on blast. It sounds like an interesting way to approach mentorship. You can write in the chat box. So you can come off
Sure.
of mute.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Awesome. So for the leaders at her organization, they're pairing them with younger women in the company. This way they can share what experiences they have just joining, what's like really important to them as younger people. And this way leaders are able to really understand what's important to the new workforce and how to change to make sure that everything is still relevant and they're providing the best support that they can.
Totally. Love that. Bravo. Have you heard of that, Julie?
So I have not heard of that, but that's an amazing concept that I'd like to be a part of.
Totally.
But it did bring up something in the job sharing realm where there is a job sharing model where, let's say you've got someone who's older and much more experienced in their field, who is basically succession planning and planning out, their retirement, for example. And it's like, okay, in the next, couple years, I'm going to be retiring. There is an opportunity for job sharing for them to job share with someone who is perhaps newer or less experienced in that industry or field, and basically ramp up this less experienced person and have that person essentially get mentored and learn from the experience of this person who's about to retire, so that when that person retires and on a full-time basis, they've got their built-in replacement. So that's a job sharing model that organizations may not consider, but could be a really, really effective solution.
I love that. And so we've got about 2 minutes left. Can you leave us with some food for thoughts, and then let us know how we can connect with you offline after we finish this call here? So leave us with some food for thought, encourage us. We're in crazy times. You've been saying a lot of really interesting things today, so I'd love for you to take us out.
Yeah, so I guess on a short note, like, I would challenge everybody to really consider the job situation they're in now, and consider that and weigh that against that all the other hats that you're wearing in your life. And if there's been this tug of war or this super amount of tension, perhaps job sharing is something that you could consider. And just soul searching, you might have, like we talked about, like some untapped creative juice going in there that you've never considered because you haven't had time to consider it. So
absolutely. I'm going to be connecting with you offline. So this is, thank you for taking the time to speak with us today. I'm excited to learn about how we can experiment and try new things so that we can get out of this mess and start to treat each other with more compassion and start to listen to ourselves more. So it sounds like, this job sharing phenomenon might be the next thing to help us move towards the future. Thank you so much for sharing, Julie.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, everyone.
All right. We'll see you on the next chat. Bye.